Now, of all journalism's ethical principles, the most fundamental is offering someone against whom allegations have been made the right to respond. That is how news organizations such as Arise News and the leading media houses of the world try to meet the highest standards of ethical journalism. That's also the difference between traditional media and social media, because as one observer put it, social media has made everybody a publisher, unhampered by the shackles of an editor. But not us. We remain resolutely balanced and down the middle. Take the case of the APC presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu's appearance at the think tank Chatham House in London. It's generated lots of reaction, with the unfavourable ones led by the opposition PDP, who are competing against the APC in Nigeria's 2023 presidential ballot. The public policy expert and PDP supporter, Professor Usman Yusuf, appeared on this program some 48 hours ago and roundly criticised Mr. Tinubu's decision to delegate key policy questions to members of his team rather than answer them himself, amongst the other things that he said. Take a listen.
The whole idea of outsourcing questions to his team. Is there anybody in the team there that we do not know of? Is it the Nasir El-Rufai that is new to us? Or is it the Speaker, Bajagbi Amila, that is new to us? Why is he auditioning them out there? Are they going to be the president? Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it was you the world wanted to hear and see how you respond, not outsourcing to people. And this is the problem. The current APC government, we blame them because Mr. President outsourced stuff to ministers and doesn't check. Are we going to have a repeat of the same thing? My mind tells me we're going back to that same old thing that is giving us a problem. You cannot outsource your job as the president to anybody else. We're not going to elect Nasir El-Rufai, fire me, Bajagbi Amila, Adeleke, or the woman leader. We're going to elect you, and we want to see how you handle questions. And he did not do that.
Well, the APC's reaction to that has been to suggest that Professor Yusuf and the PDP are trying to destroy the vestiges of Mr. Tinubu's credibility in their efforts to deprive him of the presidency in 2023. They say it's an unacceptable attempt to inflict harm on their candidate and the APC's reputation. And so, as the protagonists of ethical journalism and professional integrity, Arise News is giving this right to reply to the APC. And in that regard, I'm joined now in the studio by the co-director of strategic communication for the APC's Presidential Campaign Council and former Director General of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, NBC, Dr. Danladi Bako. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much, Charles. Delighted to be here.
Well, delighted to have you here. So your contention, obviously we just took a snippet of what he said. There were a lot of other things he said in that 20-minute interview. But your contention, watching Professor Usman Yusuf there on this program, is that your candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been grievously traduced by what Professor Yusuf had to say. Tell us why you think so.
For me, the whole essence of a campaign strategy is split between demonization of the opposition and glorification and canonization of your own candidate or your own principle. In this case, at every juncture, there's a deliberate, conscious effort to drag us into the gutter. And I think we're too decent and too disciplined to be dragged into the gutter. So when you want to demonize people, you make wild generalizations. I'll tell you something. I was part of the first day the manifesto was discussed at the Presidential Campaign Council.
You mean the APC's?
Yes, right. APC's Campaign Council manifesto, work plan. We all sat down there, the candidate came in there, and for close to 45 minutes, took the manifesto point by point, stage by stage. And I will tell you, he faced questions from Dave Umahi, governor of Ebonyi, Nasarawa, the governor of Jigawa. We had about 7 governors drill him. And he took them, one after the other, nicely. I was sitting down there. All of us were there, about 31 to 41 of us, members of the National Working Committee, who were members of the Presidential Campaign Council. The same applied to also on all the occasions, including so many other town halls. He went to Niger State to do a town hall meeting on agriculture. He was drilled with questions there. He went to Lagos, where Aliko Dangote, business community and co, drilled him with questions. So if he chose to go to London and ask his members of his team to answer questions, tell me, is there any commandment in any of the holy books that says there's only one way to do something? No. There is no constitutional directive to that effect that you must ask. Fine, you say you want to hear from him. Maybe you were not privileged to be at all the sessions we had. So wait for him. Don't demonize him. Wait for him at a good opportunity, maybe at another town hall meeting. We'll drag you, we'll give you a ticket, come and sit down there and watch how he faces those questions.
Yeah,
but it is, if, and I'll tell you, Charles, I have been to Chatham House twice. If the British journalist that was talking about something new, for God's sake, we can teach them new strategies. Why not? What makes you think that the law is about what they consider the right strategy? I'm a strategic communicator, and I can devise. Tomorrow morning, I might be the author of a brand new strategy.
Well, so, the point is very simple. Yeah. I mean, and it's really I mean, it doesn't require belaboring a point, all the stuff. I mean, these are all, certainly, I mean, I'm sure you know this, a lot of these are defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
I mean, the honest fact is that if you're asking for a job, you will need to be questioned on why you think you can do that job. I mean, the people you are a seasoned journalist, you're a broadcaster, the people who do that on behalf of the public are journalists. So the expectation is that you will make yourself available to journalists in virtually every arena. I mean, there should be no selection. You make yourself available, and Chatham House has a tradition. They've had Obasanjo there, they've had Buhari, they followed the same tradition. I mean, people want to hear from you. You can't come out and say, oh, I've come up with a new strategy where you're not going to hear from me. I don't understand it.
The problem here is that you have boxed the whole of that event into the question and answer session, which is not true. There was a 25-minute delivery of his perspective.
Yeah, there was a 25-minute delivery of a speech, which could have been written by anybody.
Beautiful. And after every one of those questions, he now chipped in addition to what they said, here and there, he made allusions or he made further clarifications to what they said.
Right.
And I don't think, for us, whatever anybody thinks, the point is that there are certain indicators as to what you need to win an election. If for some people a debate is one of them, priority, if for another is a town hall, if it's a Chatham House, the bottom line is whatever you do, if you want to avoid town hall, you want to avoid debate, you want to ensure that on election day you win that election.
But why do you? But it's also about your posture. It's about your body language.
True.
It's about the way that people perceive you to be. Why is it that it is him that of all the front runner candidates who is taking this particular position? Why is it that there is a difficulty? I mean, does he? I mean, you've got Atiku, who was a former vice president. You've got, Kwankwaso, who was a governor. You've got Obi, who was a governor. Why is it that they make themselves available? And for some reason, Bola Ahmed Tinubu decides that he will not make himself available.
Are you talking in terms of the Arise Town Hall meeting?
I'm talking broadly.
He has done so many towns. He went to Baramatu, the heartland of Niger Delta militancy. How many of them went there? When he went, quite a lot of places he's been to, quite a lot of town hall meetings he's done. He didn't need to follow the same route you're following. So there's no law that says the ideal is a Rise TV town hall. He could wake up tomorrow morning, ask TVC to set up a town hall meeting for him and invite you to come and anchor.
Yeah, no, Arise has made
Absolutely.
it ineluctably
So no
clear
law
that it doesn't have to be Arise.
It doesn't have to be Arise.
Yeah.
So we agree on that. Priority, there's an 8-letter word called priority. Priority. You give priority. Some people start their campaigns with a flurry of TV jingles, billboards, then do the talking later. Some people start with meetings. Some people, so whichever way.
So are we going to, can we expect
I am
to
sure
do one-on-one interviews, not necessarily with journalists who work for him in his own news organization?
That wouldn't even be it.
But leave himself open to journalists who will ask him questions.
Be assured you, I know.
Well, I'm asking you.
Be
Is
assured
he
you,
going to
I
do
know,
that?
as far back as 1984, we'll do that.
Well,
and let me just put it like
sure.
this. When I was talking about priority, town hall meetings by Arise have come in 3 series. All of those 3 of them raked up 723,000 views.
I don't understand what you mean.
The first one had 330,000 views.
No, you're talking about hits.
Yes,
on social media.
Hits.
That's a different thing from views.
Hits.
Yeah, Arise globally has an average viewing audience of 50 million people.
So you
can't equate the same thing that you saw on
the
social
hits
media
for
with
the hits for those series were that limited. The hits for the BBC interview was 1.2 million hits.
No, look.
So we're talking about hits. We'll come back. We can come back to. Charles, I was in front of NTA when it was 30 million viewers, so I know what you're talking about. And as a regulator, as NBC, we do research. We can gather statistics.
Sure.
I can give you, as DG of NBC, I can give you a daily statistics of what the Nigerian viewing system is. So I know what I'm talking about. So I know about viewership. I know about hits. So I'm very clear in my mind. I'm telling you that you can take priority to go to a particular channel because you feel it will serve you better.
No.
You could do that.
Well.
At a point,
but
just hang on.
Sure.
At a point, you would go round. The important thing is that at the end of the day, have you visited all the proper channels you should?
Yeah, but you're making the assumption that because you got so a certain number of hits, that those hits were all positive responses for you.
That's details.
I mean, the reason
Those are
why
fine details.
I would argue, and a lot of people would argue, that the reason why people watched it is because of the controversy around it.
And that's the candidate.
Well,
That is why.
Yeah, but it might end up showing off your candidate in a bad light. In which case, it may not be positive. For just because a lot of people watched it doesn't mean anything. But let me ask you this: I mean, surely you must expect criticism of your candidate. I mean, it goes with the territory, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Listen, as senior special assistant to a former minister of youth and sports, Chief Jim Nwobodo. The day I assumed duty in 1995, I told him that out of every 5 reports, allow 3 to be positive, 1 to be deadly negative, and 1 to sit on the fence. And Lilo, ding dong. So if you get 3 out of 5 as positive results, just thank your stars. Because the media will always be divided. Now, it's the degree of division and the gap and the gulf that matter. If you make a 60%, and as far as we're concerned, we have a candidate that is making relative. Of course, nobody throws stones at a mango tree that doesn't produce fruits. It's because there are fruits there that you stone the mango so that the troops can down there. So when you have a big candidate, the quantity and level of demonization is increased.
I like that. Well, obviously, I mean, just going back to the Professor Usman Yusuf interview, you're entitled to be hacked off with it if you want to, but you must know that in spite of your objections and this right to reply that you've claimed and which we have given you, the opposition and their supporters will not be persuaded to take the heat off Mr. Tinubu or the APC.
Nobody's expecting that. Indeed. In fact, it's, Charles, the higher you go, it doesn't get cooler, it gets hotter. the English adage that says the higher you go, it gets cooler. It doesn't get cooler. It gets hotter.
Well, it depends on where you are.
It depends on where you are. Because if you're on Mount Kilimanjaro, it's cooler.
Yeah.
But in political sense, the higher you go, it's tougher. And we expect that. it's a sign that things are going well. Nobody talks to a dead horse. Nobody bothers about a dead, you go with in mind that I told you now, I told Jim Wobodo that you will get negative remarks, irrespective of what, and there are entrenched positions. And let me tell you, there are people who make negative comments. One, some of them want attention. Some of them want you to call them and say, hey, come on, cool down on this matter, what can I give you? There's that group. There's another group that are genuine critics, and if you listen to them, you get better. No two ways about that. Those ones are there. So for instance, I have had a lot of friends, thousands of friends who have criticized Arise. But I say to them that once upon a time, we had a docile NTA that was in inertia permanently. So anything new, anything audacious will be welcome. Just a matter of contextual language. That is the difference.
Yeah, well,
so
I can assure you
I'm not. It's not about Charles
no, I
now.
understand.
But I'm making a general statement. How I have even said on many occasions that criticisms. Charles, you forget that on Morning Ride I was very critical of Babangida's regime. On 3 occasions I was picked up. So I know about criticism.
And I would actually, we will eventually get to talk a little bit about your career, which is spans an enormous segment of this country. But do you think your candidate, Bola Tinubu, has been damaged by all the negative reaction to that appearance at Chatham House? And perhaps with hindsight, he should have answered those key policy questions himself rather than farming them out?
I want to assure you that whatever analysis and conjectures and conclusions that are being drawn, I feel are urban center and social media reactions. The guy who is sitting in Arochukwu or Arondizogu or Njiko Kadunu Kofia does not care about Chatham House. The guy who is sitting in Okitipupa or Focados does not care about Chatham House. So whatever you say about him, the guy who is sitting in Garkida in Adamawa State does not know Chatham House. On the day of voting, and they make 70% of the voting public. So all of us that are sitting and wearing white collars and all that stuff and posing and talking about rhetorics, we're just doing that for ourselves, an elite syndrome. When we get to voting, the guys are not going to remember Chatham House. Well, they're going to be asking themselves, what did this candidate do for this person? And what did he do to improve our lives?
Yeah, but I think that you're probably wrong there, actually.
We will take note. Because
I think you're underestimating the new Nigerian who's going forward, a much more modern Nigerian who's going forward into the 2023 election. The key point here is that they want to hear from the candidates. They want to be able to assess, like you and I are talking now. People can see, without me sounding patronizing, that you're an exceedingly intelligent person. The way that you're handling the questions, the way that you're parrying the arguments. Now, if you and I were sitting here and I was asking you questions and you're farming it out to somebody, I mean, you're going to look ridiculous.
I want to show you.
And the point is that that's what people want to see. They want your candidate to sit where you're sitting.
I want to show
and be able to answer questions so they can assess his lucidity.
I want to assure you that we're 1 month and a half old in campaigns. We've just done about 4 or 5 cities. We have a long stretch that will take us to February 21. I have the timetable on my schedule, and in between all that, a time will come for other things which will include a one-on-one interview. I don't know with who, but I know that it is being considered. It will be done.
Right.
It will be done. I can assure you that there's no fear about the intellect and the capacity of the candidate to discuss these things. He might not give you the theories and highfalutin language you want. He might not give you postulations of, Bretton Woods or IMF. Or he might not give you any of those things, but certainly he will give you the way he considers them. Well, I remember we had a president called President Obasanjo. He answers his questions in sometimes the most elementary form.
Absolutely. And in fact, beyond Obasanjo, I mean, President Buhari.
Absolutely.
I mean, if President Buhari was very, very simple and elementary.
He didn't bother himself to go to the...
But the point is this. I interviewed President Buhari twice before the elections.
Yeah. I
In
remember.
2015.
I remember.
So the point really is that he made himself available. And he didn't choose and pick and try to control the situation. He just allowed himself to be interviewed.
As I said to you, we're still at the early stages. We have 3 months, we have 79 days to go. And I want to assure you that the time will come when this will be made available. I want to assure you about that. Nobody's going to walk away from interviews. And the matter of outsourcing, there's always two sides to a coin. People suddenly saw that we have an idea, the kind of intellect that some of his members of his team carry. Now, that's not the purpose for that day. That day was meant for him. But there was a corollary to it, which you could also consider a positive.
Yeah, but a corollary for whom? I mean, the Chatham House people are not going to vote in the 2023 election. People wanted an opportunity to see Bola Ahmed Tinubu and to hear him.
They heard him for 25 minutes.
And to hear him answer questions. The bottom line, as Professor Yusuf said, and I'm not taking his side, I'm simply making an argument that people like him have made. Their point is simply that it's
Bola Tinubu that will be elected.
Well, the point is that everybody knows Wajabi Amila, everybody knows Nasser El-Rufai.
But you know Tinubu himself.
Everybody knows
he was
all those
8 years
people.
as a governor.
They don't want to hear from those people. Anyway, I'm sure you understand that in a democracy, no party has a divine right to rule.
No.
Not the APC, not the PDP, not Labour, or the NNPP.
Yeah.
And the opposition, such as the PDP, is meant to provide healthy competition to the governing party to push it to either shape up in its provision of services to citizens or offer an alternative to voters when the governing party does not. And that is exactly what they're doing. So they're pushing every single advantage they see for themselves. And you've put this in their lap.
No. I think, listen, we could take as many incidences and blow them up the way we want to. I can come to you now and say, President Obasanjo has disowned the PDP candidate. We could make a lot of noise, worry. Do you understand? We could make it an issue. What are the issues that we need to win an election? What are the manifestos? What are they bringing? Why is it all of a sudden the issues, the simple issues about outsourcing becomes an issue?
No. It's one of many issues.
Yeah, it is pedestrian.
They are building a case against you. That's what they're doing.
The choice of what to do and what strategy is completely his.
No. They're building a case. If you were in a court of law, any lawyer that's worth his salt or her salt would systematically build a case against you. That's what they're doing. And their central argument, if you want to take that central argument, rather than what you say is the peripheral argument, their central argument is that in many respects, the PDP has outperformed the APC if you compare both their times in office. And what they're trying to show to the public is through this methodical assessment of the performance of the next APC person that's been put forward to say, wait a minute, look what you've just come from, look where they want to take you. That's the point.
I'll give you a simple answer to that basic misconception and misrepresentation of Nasser El-Rufai, for instance. Somebody says that what had he done in terms of security in Kaduna? You can see the turnaround now because more equipment have come in. The government has suddenly made sure that at the time Buhari took over, the number of local governments that were covered by Boko Haram, the number of bandits that eventually came, and now even the train that was a major issue has recovered. And I want to tell you now that everything they're using to build a case, by the time we're getting to January, the case will just be petted out because there are already things that have been done. As we speak, next week, the second Niger bridge will be open. What the whole of PDP did not do for 16 years, whether it was Jonathan or President Obasanjo, did not do that. And it took a man from Daura to come and build a bridge from Asaba to Onitsha. That's embarrassing, isn't it? So that's one of them. The endless number of things. I mean, the people in the north will be happy that in Bauchi, they're beginning to prospect for oil. Leave the other global issues. Take a look at that. And you will see now, even the Kaduna we're talking about, how many times were there kidnappings in the last 1 month on Abuja-Kaduna Road? Very rare. So these things are being done, and they will be done. And as we move towards, and already you can see what the effect of a Naira change, redesign, will cause, because it's an attempt to try to mop up the excess liquidity in the system. And if that happens, by the end of January, you will see that there will be a swift turnaround. So wait till May 29 before you crucify President Buhari.
Anyway, don't forget that, that Professor
you.
Usman Yusuf is actually from Katsina State. He comes from the same state as President Buhari, and he, I mean, so when he makes the points, he makes those points from the point of view of someone who has an epistemological privilege of understanding the North himself.
Even in your house, you will find people who are not on your side. Even within your family, there are those who pathologically hate you.
Anyway, you have had your right to reply.
Thank you very much.
Right, so let's move away from that, because I don't want you to run off immediately, because having talked about APC and PDP and all the political stuff, now that we've got you here, let's move slightly away from controversial and sort of disputatious politics. I wonder if we might have a word about your work balance. I mean, you are or were a famous broadcaster. You produced and directed top video productions, television and all the rest of it. You were Director General of the Watchdog and Media Regulator, the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, and now you are a politician and co-director of strategic communications of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council. How did you fit all that together?
Charles, let me seize this opportunity to commend, irrespective of whether public opinion is negative or whatever, the quality of staff that were employed by Arise, right from Bayo Awushimo, my bosom friend.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about one of the first times I would tell you that Bayo was one of the best directors general NTA never had.
Well, Bayo is a good friend of mine, so I can attest to that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I became Director General. I wasn't the best. God just gave me. But I worked hard. Bayo worked hard. And those of us who were in the studio, I mean, Charles would sit in that studio and we'll do stories. There was a day I went for 3 weeks. I went with my camera in my car. I was chasing Fela for his 50th birthday. And you know what it is to try to look for Fela Ransom Kuti?
Yes, of course.
For
Fela
3 weeks,
and
Niku Lapo. For 3 weeks, my camera was in my car. And of course, naturally, when you get to Fela's house, right from about 100 meters, you'll be accosted by secondhand smoke. So you had no choice. You wanted to interview him, so you had to get used to. I had that privilege because we bonded a lot. He liked my sense of activism right from university days, who were those that did, everything from 74. I was in Ahmadu Bello University from 74 to 78. Those were the crucial years. We had all the demonstrations against Kunle Adepeju, whatever, including the Ali Must Go, including apartheid. We fought for apartheid.
Yes.
I was ringleader for all of those things. So activism was in my blood. Fela liked me for that. So I had those kind of things. Likewise, interviews, Mrs. Mandela, Tai Solarin. The day I brought Tai Solarin to Morning Ride, he wore his short knickers. And I asked him that, Tai Solarin, somebody said, you said there's no God. He laughed and said, yes, there's no God. I said, how can you say a thing like that on TV, on live TV? You want the Christians and Muslim clerics to come after me? He laughed again and said, there's no God. So I apologized to the public. I said, please, these are the risks of taking a live program. I went on, and eventually I convinced him that he needed to change that position. Now you had all those kind of very rare. And Charles, I was operating under a military regime. Some of the things that some of your anchors say today, Those days, they would have locked them up. They would have locked them up. One or two of your anchormen who, the choice of words, choice of language. I was very discreet because I read English. All my lecturers in ABU were all Professor Cosentino, Andrew Horn, Brian Crow, Michael Etherton, Gabriel Shortland, all whites. You were taught etiquette. You were taught semantics, choice of language, especially in journalism. One word can alter the whole of a structure.
Well, we've got about a minute left, and it's fascinating getting to hear this side of your extraordinary life. But is the politics, though, a release from that past rigor, or is it more challenging?
Let me put it like this. All of us desire a better country. Everything that you guys do on Arise, everything that we've done in those parts, you just continued that activism to get a better country. Every attempt to make sure that we have quality leaders. Charles, you and I are too big. There are times in the past where we had motor park drivers as governors and ministers. Fine, it's their luck. They were lucky. It tells you we have a country that allows everybody space, but we need to improve the quality of people in government.
Agreed.
Right now, there are too many fantastic people outside government. There's no reason why a Pat Utomi should be sitting where he is. There's no reason why. I can give you a long list, a battalion of people who should be used.
I
but
agree.
we end up with kinds of people that put in ministers, governors, whatever, senators, people who cannot put two logical arguments together. We need the driving motive for me is to get a better country. Everywhere I can source materials and headhunt them to get a better country, I dedicate my life to doing that now.
Well, I want to say thank you very much indeed, not just for that last thought, but for this very insightful, incisive interview. I want to thank you very much indeed, Dr. Danladi Bako, who is the co-director of strategic communication for the APC's Presidential Campaign Council and former Director General of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Charles.